The new year is just around the corner, which means it's time to reflect on my best and worst purchases of the year. So I spent a few hours looking into everything that I bought this year, which was well over 100 items, and made a list of the 20 best purchases of 2024. So without further ado, grab your favorite drink and let's chat. So rather than just giving you random items without any thought, I decided that I'm going to split them into 5 different categories. The most worn heroes, the surprises, the happy little accidents, the ones that I fell in love with, and the thoughtful purchases. So the first category is my most worn items, and there's no better place to start than my actually most worn item of 2024, which is this pair of cream sandals by a brand called Bocage, or I think it's pronounced like that. So you can see that those look quite worn, and that is because I have worn them 67 times in the 8 months since I've had them. And especially given the fact that they're a summer sandal, I've actually worn them almost every single day during the spring and summer time. So what makes them super comfortable is number one, the heel height. It is about 3 centimeters, which makes them super comfortable even if I'm walking the whole day. And then the second thing I learned is that they actually have this elasticated strip under the strap in here, which actually allows it to stretch a tiny bit whenever my feet actually swell because of the heat or because I'm walking the entire day. And while at the beginning, I wasn't exactly sure whether I'm going to get a lot of wear out of them, I'm so happy that I bought them because their cost per wear has gone down to about £1 right now, and I know that these are going to last me at least another year, which makes them a perfect purchase and definitely the kind of sandal that I would be looking to buy if I am buying any new pairs next year. The second item might surprise you because I've not shown it necessarily much on this channel because I started filming videos when the weather started to get cold, but it's actually this pair of pink loafers. And what really surprised me is how much wear I got out of a pair that wasn't necessarily in a basic color. And I think that it is because they're made out of suede, which makes them super comfortable and easy to wear. And because I love the pink one so much, I actually got the same pair in beige a couple of months later after I had proven the concept that these actually work quite well with my outfits. And while I normally don't advocate for buying the same item in 2 different colors, because usually you're going to end up wearing the one item a lot more, both of those pairs have actually very similar amount of wear that they have got over time. And that is because they serve quite different functions. The pink ones can be a statement item in a more neutral outfit, while the beige ones are more of a supporting actor in some of my more colorful or crazier summer outfits. The third most worn item is something that I don't physically have because it's in storage, but it is my COS skirt. Now, this is one of the very few times where I have bought something I've seen on a fashion blogger or on influencer and I actually liked it. So I saw the same skirt on Elena Hu, and on those of you that have watched this video right here, you know that she's one of my favorite fashion and style creators. But of course, because she's warm toned and she has a lot of warmer colors, she actually got the orange version of the skirt. And so when I saw it, initially I wasn't interested because A, it's orange, and B, it was a maxi skirt, which I hadn't really worn up until that time. However, then I went into the store and realized that they had this exact same skirt in the navy blue as well. And since my color analysis, I knew that navy is actually one of my better colors and is the perfect neutral. And so I decided to kind of spend a little bit more money and buy this one full price, which is not something that I normally do, but it was the beginning of spring summer and I decided to see if I can actually style it. And I've been so happy because in the 3 to 4 months time where the weather was actually appropriate for this skirt, I have worn it 14 times and it looks brand new. And what made it super wearable is the fact that it has the elasticated waist and overall it is quite form-fitting without being clingy and without being extremely bodycon. And so it made it very easy to style both with slightly more fancy items like blouses and shirts for more elevated outfits, but it also works really well with graphic t-shirts and a pair of sneakers or sandals. And because of that versatility, I think it is definitely one of my most worn and best purchases of this year. And the next item that is one of my most worn ones, is also in storage, but I have a lot of photos of me wearing it so I can show you, is this pair of almost track pants from M&M. So it was the end of April, just before I went for my trip to France. And while I was packing, I realized that I don't actually have any pairs of black trousers that are comfortable for longer wear and I can wear while traveling. And so I went to one of my favorite consignment shops here in Manchester, and they often have this mid-range and designer items. And I found this pair of M&M trousers for £30. Now, I'm gonna be very honest, the wide leg silhouette is not something that I have worn too much, so I was a little bit hesitant, but once I tried them on, I really like them. And again, because they have a few percent of elastane, they're super comfortable while still being sturdy. And they're super versatile because they look absolutely fine with any shirts or blouses, but they can also be dressed down with a sweatshirt or with a jumper, and they work equally well. And because I'm working from home, those are extremely comfortable and perfect for that kind of situation. The next category was the surprises. And those were the items that I genuinely didn't expect to like as much or to wear as much as I actually did. And number one on this list is probably not going to be a shock to some of you that have watched this channel. It's actually my pair of paper bag waist jeans from Zara. I'll be the first to admit that up until this year, I didn't really own any pairs of jeans because I just wasn't a fan and I didn't think they were actually comfortable. And it was on this birthday shopping trip that I did for myself because I had put on a little bit of weight and things weren't necessarily fitting me greatly that I actually stumbled upon this pair of jeans. And once I tried them on, I realized that they were super, super comfortable. And so even though I don't normally shop much from fast fashion, I decided to give those a try because they were the first pair of jeans that were actually comfortable. And so ever since I got them in May, I've actually worn them 43 times, bringing the cost per wear actually to less than £1. And it's actually a lot more than that. I definitely haven't logged when I wore them for a few hours at home or maybe just to run a quick errand, things like that. I don't necessarily log, so I think the number's probably even lower than that. And the main reason those jeans work for me is because they're really comfortable to sit in. And as someone that works from home, this is extremely important because if I'm not comfortable and I'm constantly tucking my pants, I just can't focus on the work that I have to do. And even today, when I'm filming, I'm actually wearing this pair of jeans, you can see, and I'm super happy because this have become one of my safety blanket items, and because they're so relaxed and casual, they're the perfect juxtaposition to some of my more formal tops or with blazers and jackets, but I can also create quite casual looking outfits with them as well for those situations where I maybe need to go for a longer walk or running errands and I just want to be comfortable. The next surprise item might divide opinions a little bit, but it is this bag. Now, you can see it as a tote bag, and this is not an original item, it is a replica, and it is something that I actually found in a charity shop. So I had been a fan of the tote bag for quite a while, but I just couldn't justify the 200 something pounds price. And so when I found this in a charity shop for £20, I decided to give it a go because I wasn't necessarily sure whether I'm going to wear a bag that is made of canvas. But something that I learned that has been such a great lesson for me is that I actually really value bags that are slightly less structured. Because when I go in my daily life, I go to the gym, I go and do grocery shopping, sometimes I would bring a book. And so if a bag is very sturdy, it is A, quite heavy, and B, a lot harder whenever I have a lot of items that I need to carry. And so this bag became super useful whenever I was going to the gym or whenever I was bringing groceries back home. And so I ended up wearing it so much more than I anticipated. And because it's black and white, it is also the perfect bag to go with some of my crazier outfits where I just need something more neutral. And even though I bought it as sort of a test item, I realized that I don't actually want to buy the real tote bag because those ones are heavier and they are a little bit stiffer. And so what I really like about the bag is its lack of structure, and I definitely don't need another one. The next item on the list is actually two different items, and it is my two colorful pairs of suede sneakers. So these first ones are from Puma, and my mom has this exact same model but in black, and so I knew that they were comfortable, but they were not necessarily something that I intended to buy. However, just before I was going to France, I realized that I want a pair of sneakers because I was going to walk a lot and I didn't want to wear my running sneakers all the time because they just don't go well with my style. And so I started looking for more feminine looking sneakers and I came across those, which I really like because of the color and because of the bows that they have, making them a slightly more interesting or elevated trainer than all of the others that are normally available. And I'll be the first person to admit that pretty much until this year, I wasn't really a sneakers person. I have tried everything from Vans to Converse to any sort of like leather trainers, and it just wasn't working for me. And so when those worked out really well, I realized that if the sneakers are suede and they're a little bit more interesting through their color, they actually fit quite well with my wardrobe. And that is why when I came across the Adidas Campus ones, I realized that those can actually be a really good counterpart, maybe for the colder months where I need something slightly more neutral but still colorful. So both of those pairs were actually purchased secondhand, and they cost about £8 to £10 each, which was really important for me because I didn't want to spend a lot of money on an item that I didn't really have proof of concept of. And that is why both of those have turned out to be a really good surprise, having worn them about 15 times each. And I'm really happy because now I know why the previous pairs that were super neutral weren't working for me. It was either because of the color or the material. And the final item in this category is not what I initially intended to buy. So I've been seeing this a lot on Pinterest, on Instagram, and I really like the sort of colorful and relaxed tracksuit with maybe a blazer or a jumper, something a little bit different. So I decided to see if I can find a pair like this. I found a lot of them on Vinted, but for some reason I just couldn't pull the trigger. And so I was browsing the charity shops one day and I came across this pair of Adidas pants. And I would say the fabric of these is in between tracksuit and jeans. It is stretchier than jeans, but it's definitely sturdier than the tracksuit. And what's more, they were actually straight leg, so very different from my original inspiration. But what I realized is that even though I love those looks, on me, because I have curves, very wide leg and very relaxed trousers don't actually look all that nice. And I had a few pairs of linen trousers that I really enjoy, but those other kind of bigger pants just weren't necessarily the right fit. And so those more fitted, more streamlined, more neutral bottoms were something that I could get a lot more wear out of. And by the way, if you're enjoying this sort of slightly more chatty videos where it's less edited and I'm just sharing my experiences, please give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments because I want to make sure that I'm always providing value even if I'm just chatting. And now let's go back to the video. Next we have what Bob Ross used to call happy little accidents, and to me those are the items that I sort of stumbled upon. I didn't even know that I wanted to buy those things, but when I actually saw them, I really liked them and I decided to give them a go. So the first item is actually something that I bought late in December last year, and it is this Storm & Marie mock neck jumper. So this one is super lightweight, it is made of lyocell and is extremely comfortable. And to me, this has become one of my basics. And I know that a bright red jumper to a lot of people would be one of their statement items, but because this is in one of my best colors and it is relatively simple as an item and easy to style in a variety of different ways, I realized that for me, this is one of my basics, just like the blue jumper that I'm wearing today. And so this happy little accident has been one of my favorite purchases of the year and something that I'm definitely getting more and more wear out of as the time goes. The second happy little accident is actually this bracelet from Thomas Sabot. And it's actually made of real pearls and different stones like rose quartz. So I actually spotted this when I was shopping in an area that was quite different from where I usually shop. And because the bracelet actually has this silver pendant, it had gone quite rusty and it didn't really look very high quality until you actually look in detail and you see the silver engraving that this is actually made of real silver. So I spotted this bracelet and I asked the lady to show it to me, and when I tried it, I was really surprised by the heftiness of it. Because, you know, sometimes those stone and pearl bracelets can be really, really flimsy and they just didn't feel really high quality to me. But this one, when I got it and when I put it on, I instantly liked it. And the best part is that it was only £5 compared to, I think, about £100 if you had to buy this retail. And so over the next months and months, I wore this pretty much on a daily basis, bringing the cost per wear down to something really, really small. But beyond that, I realized that accessories are one of those things where I can get a lot of wear out of, especially if they're neutral but with a twist. And because I wear a lot of black, white and pink, this bracelet became a really easy accessory for me to add to my stack. The next happy little accident is another one that if you've watched any of my videos, you've probably seen, and it is this pearl floral bracelet that I found in a vintage shop. So I love those items that have any sort of personal connection to me, and so I was visiting one of my friends in Wales, and while waiting for her to finish work, I was able to just browse around the little Welsh town. And I stumbled upon this shop that I didn't even know existed, and I had a really good conversation with the shop owner. So I was browsing through the different items, and a lot of the stuff weren't necessarily something that I was interested in, but then I spotted this necklace, and my eye was instantly drawn to it. So I tried it on, I loved it, and even though it is something that is a lot more substantial compared to the jewelry that I normally wear, I just fell in love with it, and it was this happy little surprise that I didn't even know that I wanted. It was only £3 as well, so it just felt really stupid not to buy it, and since then I've worn it a couple of times, and every single time I wear it, it just feels like something that is authentic to me. And the final happy little accident is something that I've also featured quite a lot on the channel, and it is actually this orange suede bag. So I wasn't necessarily super surprised that I like the shape because it is large, it is soft, and so I can carry a lot of stuff in it. So that wasn't necessarily why this is something like a happy little accident. But what is unique about this bag is that it is bright orange, and having done my color analysis last year, I know that orange is not within my color palette. I'm the coolest of winters, and so for me, it is definitely not the color that I like to wear or have a lot of items in. But at the same time, I just was really drawn to this item and I just couldn't let go. And so I realized that even though orange is not within my color palette, this is the perfect color for all of my navies and blues and blacks and grays, because it is the complementary color to the blue and it's a great accessory to brighten up those maybe darker or duller outfits where I just need one pop of color to create a very different effect. And this is the perfect way of using colors that you enjoy, but maybe don't necessarily work great close to your face, because whenever I'm wearing it, it doesn't really reflect in any way on my face, but at the same time, it's been able to add a lot of contrast and visual interest even to my more plain outfits. The next category is probably one of my favorites, and that is because these are all items that I saw and I instantly fell in love with. And this is something that doesn't necessarily happen very often, but when it does, it is usually something that I can't stop thinking about, even if I don't buy it right away. And the first item is absolutely the representation of that. And again, this is a skirt that you have seen so much on my channel. It is by a brand called Sandro, and it was something that I've wanted for a very, very long time. So I first saw this skirt when I was in Portugal last year, and I tried it on in the store, but I think it was about £200, and so I definitely couldn't justify spending that much on a single skirt, and so I didn't buy it, I left it in there. It didn't really go on a significant sale, and I kept scouring Vinted for the skirt, and it only came up once in the completely wrong size for me, and so I couldn't buy it. So I kept searching and searching for about 7 or 8 months, and it just wasn't there. It was nowhere to be found. And I found a different Sandro skirt that was also grey that I bought, but it just wasn't giving exactly the same effect that I wanted. One day in June, I just had this urge to check Vinted, and so I did. And what do you think showed up straight on my feed? Well, it was this skirt, and so I managed to slightly negotiate down the price, and I got the skirt, and it was the best day of my life when I got it. And obviously, I'm exaggerating, but it is something that I had been wanting for such a long time. It was, I think, about 7 or 8 months at that point, and I was so happy that I got it. And since then, I have worn it so many times in a variety of different outfits, so it can be dressed up to go on a date or for more slightly formal occasions, but at the same time, it works really well with a sweatshirt and my chunky combat boots as well. And I have styled this skirt a few different times on this channel because I just genuinely love it. It's so comfortable, it's so easy to wear, and because it is neutral, but it has the pleats and it has the buttons, it has enough visual interest for me to be something that I reach for a lot, but it's also very, very versatile. And the second item has a very similar story because if you remember that picture, I also tried a black and white jumper. And I think this one was about £220 because it is made of wool and cashmere, which is good quality, but at the same time, I just couldn't justify spending over £200 on a single item. And so I decided to wait for the sales before I would buy it. And at the same time, I continued to look for certain replacements because I just really enjoyed how the V neckline made me feel. It felt a lot more sophisticated than any of my crew necks. Now, I kept finding Ralph Lauren and Tommy Hilfiger, who also make kind of similar designs in terms of neckline, but those jumpers were either made of really thick and heavy wool, or oftentimes they were made of cotton, and they just didn't fit in exactly the same way than this one fitted. So rather than buying 5 different jumpers that were 90% there, I decided to let it go and let the universe and the algorithms do their magic. And so again, one day in September, I just had this urge to go on Vinted, and this was number 1 in my recommendations. So again, negotiated it a little bit, and I ended up getting it for about 1/3 of the original price, which to me is probably the best price that I could get this item in the condition that it was. And since then, I am so happy every single time I put this on because it is exactly the item that I wanted. It is something that I fell in love with, and I'm really happy that I didn't buy any replacements because it is one item that I wanted, one item that I needed, and now that I have it, I don't need another 10 white jumpers. The next item is also in storage because it's definitely more of a spring-summer item, but it is this pink shirt from Zara. And it was that same trip that I got the blue jeans that I also spotted this shirt. And I'll be honest, Zara is not famous for really high quality, and I generally avoid buying any items from them because it is fast fashion and they don't tend to last long at all. However, I had recently realized that I quite enjoyed a striped shirt, and when I saw this one in pink, black and white, I decided that let me just give it a try. And when I put it on, it just fit really nicely on me in a way that I hadn't really had before, because it was still made of cotton, so it sort of held its shape a lot better than, let's say, silk, but it wasn't thick, and so it fitted a little bit better, and it was a lot more malleable than any other thicker cotton blouse. Beyond that, I realized that it is quite relaxed and oversized, and even though this was not necessarily an effect that I had been looking for before, when I tried it on, I genuinely really liked it. And so I got it, and I wore it about 14 times in the spring and summer, which may not seem like a lot to some people, but given that I have probably about 100 tops in total and there's only 365 days in a year, it's definitely quite a lot of wear for me. And it is something that I'm really excited for the weather to start warming up so I can wear again. And so again, this was one of my favorite purchases and definitely something that I'm going to continue wearing a lot. And the final item in my best buys when it comes to items I fell in love with is actually this white blouse from Another Stories. And again, it's something that I featured a lot on the channel, and that is because this is genuinely a very, very versatile item, but it's also the right kind of blouse for me. And I'm saying that because I think that I am a soft classic, and so I need fabrics that are in between very sturdy, very thick ones and very flimsy and soft ones. And this is, I think, the perfect blend because it is cotton, but it is quite soft. And because of the shape of the sleeves as well, it actually fits really nicely and just makes me look and feel really, really beautiful. And beyond that, I also like the fact that it has this applique. It's basically 3-dimensional and quite nice to the touch. And to me personally, this is really important because I know that this exact shape, if it was just a plain white shirt, I would definitely not be reaching for it as much because it's just visually, to me, less interesting. And so this is something that I have learned about myself, that even though basics are basics, this is to me an elevated basic or my kind of basic that has a little bit more visual interest than just a plain white item. And the final category is what I call the thoughtful purchases. And these are items that I basically decided that I need that specific kind of item, and I went and I intentionally looked for it. And I know that a lot of people shop in this specific way, they'll have a wish list and so on, but for me, I would still say that I'm much more of a, I see something and then I buy it. So it's not necessarily impulsive, but sometimes I don't know I want something until I see it. And in this category are items that I genuinely knew I wanted and I searched for them. So the first item is a relatively recent purchase. I only bought it at the end of November, but it has become one of my most favorite purchases in this year, and that is my vintage red coat. It is made of 100% wool, it is fully lined, and I think on me, it just looks really, really good. Because rather than having those very pointy shoulders with the shoulder pads, which are a lot more masculine, this one has the more rounded shoulders that on my frame, being quite narrow and being quite soft and curvy, this looks to me a lot better. But what I was actually looking for is a red coat, because I realized that oftentimes I don't feel very feminine in my clothes. And with feminine being one of my 3 styled words, whenever I was wearing, let's say, a black coat, I just didn't feel as feminine, and accessories weren't necessarily enough to make me feel really good. And so this was a purchase that I spent maybe 2 to 3 months looking for. I tried a variety of different coats and they just weren't right. So when I saw this one in a charity shop, I decided to buy it, even though it was slightly on the higher price. I paid £45, which was maybe a little bit more than what I wanted to pay, but because it was in pristine condition, no holes, nothing in there, it was perfect, and I only really need one coat, I decided to invest in it, and so far I've worn it about 10 to 12 times. I get a lot of compliments and I just feel a lot more feminine and more like myself. The second item in the thoughtful purchases is actually something I'm wearing today, and it is this silver chain necklace. Now, ever since my color analysis last year, I knew that silver is my metal, and this is something that I genuinely have been wearing for a long time, and I've bought a lot of silver rings and silver bracelets over time, but for some reason, I just didn't have any silver necklaces. And so a lot of the time, I would have the right colors, and I would want to have a silver necklace, but I would have to either wear white or gold, and it wasn't exactly the look that I wanted. And so earlier in the year, I went back to Bulgaria and I knew that I wanted a chain necklace that was made out of silver. So I started looking in a variety of different stores. And there were a lot of chain necklaces, but they were very plain, very boring, very standard. And I tried a lot of them and something just wasn't right. And so I went to my favorite store that I have bought a couple of pieces in, and I found this one, and straight away I put it on and I was like, that's it, okay? Like, I'm not even trying any of the other ones. This is it. Because sometimes when you find the right thing, you just know. And so I spent about £40 on this necklace, and I have worn it almost every second or third day, and it's got about 50 wears in total so far. And the best thing with accessories like silver and gold that are made of the real deal is that they don't really expire. They don't go out of style, and it's definitely something that is going to keep its value for as long as I have it. And so for me, this has been one of my most thought about purchases. It took me a while to find the right one. But again, right now, I don't really want to buy another silver necklace that looks like this, because this is perfect. I wear it all the time and it fulfills whatever I need it for. The third thoughtful purchase is something that I wanted for a while but just couldn't pull the trigger because of the price tag, and that is cashmere loungewear. And so earlier in the year, when I was browsing in TK Maxx, I actually came across this loungewear set. And it's actually by 2 different brands, but the colors were exactly the same, so I don't know what happened there. But I tried it on, and straight away, again, I felt this, heck yes, this is it, that I just needed to buy this item. And so for me, as someone that works from home, most of the time I would wear my regular clothes, but sometimes maybe when the day is over or I just want to lounge on the sofa on Sunday, I don't necessarily want to wear trousers or jeans. And so I knew that, again, I don't want to hang out in leggings because I just don't feel like myself, I don't feel put together. And so a cozier and slightly more stylish piece of loungewear was something that was on my wish list for a very, very long time. But the price of buying that new is usually about £200 to £300 per piece, and I just couldn't justify it because I'm not in loungewear that much. And so when I found this set for about £130, I said, okay, that's probably my upper limit. And I'm so happy that I bought it because number one, it's warm. Number two, it's soft. And it is also something that I have definitely got a lot of wear out of. And last but not least, it is a relatively recent purchase, but one that I'm so happy about. And it is this Sandro bag in the black and white print. Now, if you've watched up until this point, you can say, well, this bag is actually similar, but the opposite of the Marc Jacobs tote. And the reason why I got this is because I had been looking to replace my Cézanne bag for the past year. The Cézanne bag is very similar in shape, very similar in size, but it was in cream and ochre yellow. And as someone that is a cool winter, those colors started to not go that well with the rest of my outfit. And so I would have, let's say, reds and pinks and greens in my outfit, and then have this very warm toned bag that didn't go very well. And so I wore the bag as much as I could, but at one point I started to look for a replacement. And because I really liked the Sandro bags when I saw them in store, I started to look on Vinted for a bag like that. But they actually tend to keep their price quite high, they keep their value. And so I couldn't find anything that was at a reasonable price. And again, one of those magical days on Vinted, this showed up in my feed and it was about £60, which is way, way, way below the typical typical price, which is about 120 to 150. And what is more, it is actually in the black and white color. And because I had validated the concept of a black and white bag with the Marc Jacobs style before, I decided that this is a much better bag for me than if I was to buy it in blue or green or any other color, because I do wear black and white outfits quite a lot, and oftentimes I want to have a bag that is in some sort of print or pattern and has only those two colors. And ever since I got it, I've just been so happy because it fits my laptop, it fits all of my necessities whenever I need to go to work or go somewhere, but at the same time it is not a blunt bag, and so it is structured, but it also has this sun style root if you're into the style roots. And so for me, this has been such a dream come true to have it. So those are my best purchases, but do you know what my worst ones are? Click here to watch the video and I'll see you there.